FN. This is episode 12 of the live call-in show for your hot takes, bold predictions, and unpopular opinions surrounding the competitive Fortnite scene. This week, we finally got our beloved co-host back, B.R.U.T.E. It's great to have him back in that co-host seat as we welcome our special guest, 100 Thieves Elevate. This is going to be a fantastic evening. Obviously, we just at the time of recording had the competitive post about the B.R.U.T.E, the Mechs posted. So we're definitely going to get into that 100%. Otherwise, we're ready to talk about your takes, your opinions, your topics. That's the point of the show, and we're really excited to get into it. So, Bala, it's been like 3 weeks since you've been on Hotline FN, or 2 weeks since we've even done it. What have you been up to, man?
Yeah, man, I'm sorry, guys. I haven't been here for a while. We actually had to cancel an episode because of me, and I feel bad about that. I was sick, and then I went to a wedding, but I'm better now. And I've been starting to crank content just like you love to see. I hope you guys are enjoying it. But regardless, man, I've been making some upgrades. Look at this camera right now, Tim. Look at this thing. It's not grainy.
It looks great.
HD. It is beautiful. So yeah, making some upgrades.
Perfect. That's what we love to see. I'm glad to have you back. Glad you're feeling better. Glad post World Cup. Hopefully we get to talk a little bit about that. Elevate, this is your second time on the show. You're the first non-co-host repeat. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
You.
What have you been up to this last week, I suppose?
Just got back home, really just streaming. Nothing really new, just doing the life, just like Bala. Need to get a better camera. Need to have that Elevate in HD. We got Bala in HD right now, looking cute. So, yeah.
Whoa, we didn't need that in HD. Oh, no.
What we're missing here, Tim, is a fucking congratulations, Elevate, on your World Cup performance, bro. Because
thank you.
Out of this world. Third place, right? I'm not fucking up. Let's go. A little millionaire over here.
Yeah.
Just vogue it.
I heard you got a new phone.
Yes, I did. I actually got
I heard you got a new phone.
Yeah, I got the iPhone XS, 516 gigabytes. It's not crazy.
Flexing the gigabytes.
Yeah, I just need a new phone. Nothing big, just the brand new iPhone XS.
That's it. Yeah. All right. Well, before we hop into the rest of the show, before we deliver some content to these fine folks, let's talk about the format, right? So like I said, it's a live show. It operates on you calling in through Discord. So the way to get here, the way to get on is to type !Hotline FN into the chat. I'll even do it for you. Look how easy that was. Follow the instructions, okay? You'll join the Discord. You'll drop your topic, not a question, a topic, something that you already have an opinion on. And then if we like it, we give you that little golden thumbs up. You'll be pulled from the waiting room into the staging channel. You get voice checked, and eventually we'll bring you on. It is not first come, first serve. We pick and choose as we go along. So if your topic is approved, just hang out for a minute. Just hang out, enjoy the show, and eventually you'll get brought on. Guys, it's chat, no space. I just typed it in, right up there. All right,
chat.
Come on,
guys.
Chat. Come on, chat.
You guys are literally trolling.
You guys are throwing already, chat. Okay. All right. So that said, I think the first thing we have to talk about, guys, the very first thing we have to talk about is, let's see, Fortnite and the B.R.U.T.E blog post from just earlier this evening, not even that long ago. Was it a full hour ago yet? It hasn't been up that long.
Yeah, a full hour.
2 hours, yeah.
2 hours. Okay. So in this blog post, there are a couple of key things, right? The mission of Fortnite is to bring players of all skill levels together to have a fun experience where anyone can win. Right now, we know there are players out there who have never had that opportunity to get their first elimination or a victory royale. They talk about how that's why the B.R.U.T.E exists. That's why the B.R.U.T.E is there. And the only reason that they dropped the spawn rate of the B.R.U.T.E is so that they feel like unique engagements and not just like a constant thing that is happening always. They shared some stats. There's some interesting stuff here. I know people have some interesting takes on it. Paula, what was your first reaction to this?
Oh, there's so many reactions.
The 5 stages.
Yeah, no, like every sentence there was a different thing, right? It was like, okay, we knew that, right? Okay, we knew that there's people who struggle. We knew that your mission was to make it so that everybody can win. That is the theme of Fortnite, I guess. Well, apparently now it's, if it hasn't been officially said before, it is official now that they have that as a main core concept. So yeah, initial reactions, man, we're all over the place, ranging from pure rage to confusion to yeah, okay, we get it, like, and just frustration at the end, right? Just pure frustration. I don't know. I really think that pretty much everybody, when I was going through Twitter after, it was just pure frustration. That was it. That was most people's reaction.
Elevate, how about you? What was your first take on this?
I was actually streaming when it happened, and like, I feel like the blog post was, I guess it was nice for them to officially say like they're catering to casuals, but like, I don't know, this blog post was just kind of a slap in the face. Like, it was them officially saying like, yeah, everything you guys are saying is correct, but we literally don't care. And for me, like, looking at it, it was them like saying in an official, like, special way to say like literally just like, no matter how much you complain, we're gonna ignore you because we want bots to win, pretty much. Yeah. And like, for me, it just doesn't make sense, right? Like the B.R.U.T.E and like the way they want, like the way they're trying to cater to casuals just doesn't make sense for me, because if they want casuals to win, why do they even have a competitive mode, like, in the first place? Like, why have them in a competitive mode? Like, casuals can be competitive by like working towards being better, and that's the entire thing about being competitive. Like, having a nuke that can kill people easily, it isn't a competitive mode. So for me, it's just like, they say they want to do this, but then they don't, like, they're not even catering to casuals in a good way, in my opinion. So I don't know. It just is confusing. Like, their message and the way they're doing it, it still doesn't really make sense. Like, the actions, if that's their message, the actions don't make sense. It's like the TLDR of it.
Yeah, and it's tough, right? Because it's like, what this shows is that they didn't want B.R.U.T.E to win, right? They didn't want B.R.U.T to win $3 million. They wanted one of the unknown names to ride a baller all game long and do crazy stuff like that. And they wanted that guy to win $3 million, right? Like, I agree with your point of, it doesn't really make sense. Why they don't trust viewership and people's opinions to be able to be buoyed by the competitive experience. They don't trust that the competitive experience of the game is enough to drive viewership, to drive sales of skins, to drive people playing the game. They just don't think it's enough, right? And I don't know. I think all it takes is looking at like the top streams, a lot of the top streams on Fortnite. Sure, a lot of them are like quote unquote content creators, but the top ones aren't, you know what I mean? Like, the top ones right now are Tfue and Bugha most nights, right? And they are writing, their whole viewer base is writing on the competitive experience, like, basically entirely, right? And so it's weird to me that they don't have that trust, that they feel like it just has to be a spectacle, like they posted and like you tweeted on Bala, which is
I don't know when that was. What was it, Monday something? It just feels every single new blog post is just pushing. I mean, we already know all this stuff because that's what their actions are, but when they make a blog post, it's like, well, yes, this is what you're trying to achieve, but like Elevate's saying, like, it's still not the right way to go about it, right? Like, and there's so many like incongruous things that I feel like there's, again, we talked about it before, maybe a like a misconnection between some sort of Epic and somewhere else, because again, we are in a spot where everybody can win, yet there are still thresholds to actually play in the tournaments in the first place. Like, if it was that way, then why are we improving and why are we moving towards an FCS format that is so good? At the end of the day, it's just like all the reasons in there, regardless of the stats, it's like, oh, we want people to have a unique experience where they can have fun and all this stuff. And my biggest thing is just like, this It's not fun. It's not unique. After the first game you are in, it is not unique anymore because you're just getting shot by missiles every time. And that is the most frustrating. I guarantee this is like the pump vault to me. I guarantee that there are people leaving the game in hordes because they keep dying to mechs over and over and over and over and over. And that is not something that matches their blog post at all. They're ignoring that part and just being like, yeah, mechs are fun because you get to shoot missiles and get eliminations and get kills. Like, no, nobody cares about that. It's not fun.
Yeah. And it doesn't even make sense, like, having one overpowered, like, object to have one person. It's like they're trying to cater for 2 or 4 people out of the 100 in the lobby, which doesn't really make sense. So, like, say you're playing, like, a random solo, you know, like, 50% of those people, like, say it's a really bad lobby, like, 50% of the people have, like, 10 wins max, right? Like, a random bot hops in a mech is maybe having, in their like opinion, in their eyes, this kid's having the time of his life. But what about those other 48 players who's like still don't know how to build? You know, they're still lower levels. They don't understand like the game as much, or like don't have the specs to play at a high quality, or playing on like a Nintendo Switch or something. Like, what are they supposed to do to counter this mech? Like, us pro players. Yeah, us pro players, we can barely counter it. Sometimes we can live for like an extra 10 seconds if we spam turbo build and like do some crazy face wave retake to get into a new building. But what is Timmy supposed to do when he's trying to go into the zone, gets caught out by a mech, and die? Like, then Timmy's mind goes, okay, I'm going to land in a mech. Yeah, like it doesn't really make sense if you only have 2 mechs. Like, I don't know. It doesn't. What their goal is fine. Like, we know the goal, but like if they're going to achieve that goal, they're gonna have to at one time, and it seems like it's slowly going here. I don't know if it's like the Nate effect, as I like to say, like with Nate Nanzer being picked up by Epic Games or something like that, but it seems like everything would be fixed if they just like had a line and said, this is competitive Fortnite and this is like the Fortnite you like. And I still don't know why we don't have that line. Like, casuals can still enjoy it, casuals can still play it, and they can play against other casuals at their level. But why do we have to have a mech in that? It just doesn't really, or even make it so like the line is different, like Champion League.
Yeah, and we kind of have that line too, right? Stormflip was removed today from competitive again, even though it was mistakenly added back in, but that was gone. The airstrike was removed from World Cup. There was so many different things that were removed and thought about from a competitive standpoint. So it's just like, we've been asking for it forever. They're like, okay, here's a little bone, and then it's all of a sudden, no, never mind. You guys can have them back.
Yeah, I know. It just doesn't. It's so random, and I think the most infuriating thing about it is like the you can't predict like what is Epic's gonna do with the game. You just kind of like, you wake up at 4 a.m. and even though there's like leaks and stuff of the patch notes, you literally have no idea what you're gonna be playing, what game. Like, you have no idea. Like, the new season came out and we have no mobility anymore. We have no idea that every mobility source on the map would be gone. Like 100% everything. We have to run everywhere now and driftboard everywhere. So like, it's, for me, it's just these changes are really infuriating because we have no idea what's happening and why. And we can't even predict it because they're so random on like what they're doing.
I mean, if we to back it up just a bit to go back to talking about the mechs, right? And this particular blog post, but Paul, you kind of hit something, or you made me think about something with your tweet, your immediate response to the blog post tweet. And you kind of just mentioned how like it's just frustrating to die against. Doesn't matter if you're good or you're bad, like it's just frustrating to die against it, right? If you're a bad player, it's frustrating to die, period, I imagine. And because I'm not a bad player, but it's almost like this sense of, it's kept in arena, but Stormflip isn't, right? So the only reason it's kept in arena, because they said the whole reason the mech is in the game is either for spectacle or to help bad players. And if bad players aren't expected to be making round 2, round 3 of, you know, these FCS tournaments coming up and stuff, then it's literally only there for spectacle. And the only spectacle it gives is streamers being pissed out of their mind, right? So like, are they effectively encouraging anger and frustration as like the de facto form of entertainment and how they want their game to be presented and known, right? Like it feels almost like that's what they're pushing towards. Like we want more angry ninja clips. Like that's all.
Yes.
That's what we want. And that's all
I
we
was
want.
literally about to bring up like the planes. Remember when he got planed by Nav and he freaked out? Like that was a thing that I remember so much. And Nav got hate for that. He literally got so much hate because he planed Ninja. And then literally, I think I was in a Discord with you, Elevate, when we were watching Winter Royale, just watching every single player get planed. And sure, it's a spectacle, but guess what's happening on the stream or when people are streaming their own and there's clips going out on Twitter? It's people getting upset, people getting mad, people just not having a good time. And that isn't the type of spectacle you want. You want booga. You want that, man. Why don't we want that? I don't get it. Why don't we love that shit? That is the most brilliant thing ever. Booga is now the best player in the world. He is mechanically far and away better than most people even can think of. And he's not even being celebrated besides from the community. From the community. Like what's happening?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's nonsense. And that hurts both. Like it hurts me both from I like Fortnite and don't want the community, right? They're just pushing an already like toxic competitive community towards being more and more toxic, and their general community in general, right? When the game is just known for being frustrating in general, that's the attitudes it creates. And also just from like a cultural viewpoint, like how long can I support something that's goal is to push outrage? Like that's not something I'm super keen to be a huge part of or have a huge part in my life, right? Like it's super frustrating. It's super frustrating. And it's just like they've shown time and time again, like there's not a damn thing we can do about it. Right. Like, but then to back it up again, even further, it's just, well, I don't know. Are you guys done with this sentence, callers?
The sentence that bothers me the most is the like, well, not only was it completely ignored any sort of competitive aspect really, besides like showing arena stats, but regardless, the entire game of Fortnite is about making sure that anybody can win. Literally anybody can win, right? They talk about getting somebody's first win and are actually conflating that with arena stats and competitive play, which is what we associate arena with the entire community associates arena with. And that just means to me that this game is never going to be what we all want it to be. And I don't know if I can accept that. I really don't. It's such a scary, and I've been scared for months, if not the entire year, right? I'm like, okay, I really want this. I really think this is going to take off, right? This is going to be the best competitive game of all time. And I say that as a person who's played Counter-Strike, the best competitive game of all time for 15 plus years. I say that as I love that game. That is my number one game of all time still. But Fortnite could have been better. It could have been. And I think that dream is dead. This blog post to me killed it. Like killed it completely.
Yeah. It hurts. It hurts. Like it just hurts to read. It hurts to see. And even more than the current situation with the Mechs, it hurts for the future because what they've said is that week after week, they're going to keep introducing more spectacles like this. And again, just not to double down so hard, but if their idea of a spectacle is just angry players, like you have nothing to look forward to week after week after week, except being angrier, right? Like being angrier or being a new player or a newer player who like, what's the curve then? Like you start playing and maybe the mech's interesting because it lets you get some kills, but then you eventually just by dint of playing enough start to get a little bit better. And suddenly the mech is a frustrating thing for you too. Like you don't have to be that good for the mech to be frustrating, right? You just have to be you have to be good enough to like fighting. That's it. Not even to be necessarily good at fighting, just to like fighting. And then suddenly things like the mech, things like the sword are just total BS and nothing but a fresh source of frustration. So it's like I don't even think it's sustainable, after some point in time. I don't know. The player base skill just rises over time. And then they're running out of new players. They're going to run out of new players and they're just shooting themselves in the foot. Like they're hurting all their player base and they're hurting themselves, and it feels pointless. It feels pointless. All they would have to do is say, okay, it's not an arena, our bad, and do better in the future, and that would make all of us so much happier. Like I'd still be willing to I wouldn't feel bad about grinding anymore. I'd be like, okay, at least it's still like this game, right? Instead they're like, no, we're gonna do this in the future. We're gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, for me, like the sad thing about the blog post is really last season, season 10, was probably the best season for competitive Fortnite, like balance wise and map wise. The Stormflip was pretty much like having one really broken thing a season, like having only one thing is pretty good, like for Fortnite. And so like season 10 really had everything quality of life wise for like for pro, and I think it was like they wanted
Season
World Cup to be
9, you
good.
mean?
Season 9, yeah, not season 10. And
Yeah.
so for me, it was just like I really it was during that like those the like last 2 months ish of like preparing for World Cup. It was like scrims were so much nicer to play. I was so much more motivated. You know, when I died,
Yeah.
I felt like 90% of the time, I felt like a lot of times it was like a mistake I made and that I could fix it. And then that as a team, if we were the best, we would excel and be the best. And it was like for the first time ever, really, when I've played Fortnite, I felt like if we played our game, we would be top 5, like 100%, no matter what. Like if we played well. And I feel like right now, like in a tournament, I don't think like I could say that with no mobility, no like the mechs everywhere. Like someone off spawn, if there's a mech near you, you know, you're just gonna die.
You have to
like,
go somewhere else. Yeah.
yeah, like yesterday we had a mech like near us, so we just like landed on it and then went and pushed a team like on Polar Peak and just wiped them instantly. And like we were just laughing the entire time. Like it's so I felt bad more than I felt like I was having fun. And so like for me, it's just like last season was such a like wow, this is what competitive Fortnite could be, and then this season is like wow, this is actually what competitive Fortnite is.
I mean,
you know what's crazy too? You know what's crazy? This blog
What?
post didn't even address Tilted Town. Didn't even address the
Yeah.
lake. Didn't even address Retail Row having zombies in the game, which we have decided is not appropriate and competitive, and they have not put it in any pop-ups when it was in the game two times so far.
Yep.
And all of a sudden now it's like, okay, well, we're doing crazy shit
to
this
be
season.
fair,
So.
to be fair, like there's a difference between like map wide constantly spawning zombies and an isolated POI. I'm not saying that's like it's good, but there's a difference, right? Like
But at the same
especially
time,
to them.
at the same time, my trio was dropping Retail Row, and we were
Mega
doing
Mall,
well, and we were
yeah.
good at fighting. Well, yeah, Mega Mall. And now that like there's zombies there, it's max. It's really a one-team spot now. Like if there are two teams there, it can be really
Really
shambles. Yeah, and so like now we just have to go to a different spot, like randomly before Season X Championship that we're expected to compete in is happening. So like these map changes are fine and stuff, but like there's like why I don't know. It's really it's same old Fortnite, you know. I've played this game. This is the things that happen, and you know it's good to have a positive attitude, but at the same time, you just got to find something that's fun, and like find a reason to play that isn't Fortnite itself. And if you can't find that, I feel like you're gonna fall off. Just
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah.
That's mind blowing. The fact that Elevate, one of the most positive pro players in the scene, is saying that if you can't find a reason that isn't the game, then you're screwed.
Yeah,
That is mind blowing. That's my philosophy too, right? Like literally, play the game that you have, not the game that you want it to be. That has always been the thing.
Yeah.
I play because I love Fortnite, but man, Megan is so damn hard.
Yeah, right.
Like
Because you only have a few options now, right? Like either you're already good enough to be vying for the prize pools, and so you stick around for some sweet hard cash, right? Or you're not good enough and you've been practicing to get good enough, except now that it's not fun. It's not enjoyable at all to practice and grind to be that good, as everything's changing and being screwed up and messed with and stuff. Especially because like if someone logs on like today for the first time and decides they want to grind arena to get champion to play this weekend or next weekend, right? Like that's kind of a slog. It's going to take a decent amount of time, especially if you're new. Getting through that with Mechs, with all the POI changes, with whatever's coming week after next, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is, whatever crazy nonsense, right? Like it's only going to get harder. That's what they've announced. It's only going to be harder to be a competitively minded player, to be an improvement minded player, even if you don't want to play competitively, even if your goal is to like have fun and get good at the game. Like, sorry, you're not our demo. Like, be good enough to win money or move on. And so that's a hard pill to swallow. And the stats they posted, you know, we could talk a little bit about that before we move on. they're like fine. It's like whatever, right? Like if the average kill by a brute is once per game, you know, there are topics about like whether or not it you know, you don't have to be killed by a brute for a brute to super screw over your game, right? Like, so the stat doesn't tell everything. I don't doubt that the stat's true. It just doesn't tell everything, right? It does not like paint a super clear picture. A lot of people are talking about how they think like they straight up lied regarding the lower skilled players are getting more kills and higher skilled players have stayed the same. They miss in there though the grouping of that middle tier, right? That's where the kills are coming from. The middle tier is being punished. The players who aren't so super good, they slay out in all the non-mech related parts of the game, and then die to a mech. They're like struggling to slay out throughout most of the game, and then face a mech, right? Whereas less players getting more kills because of the mech, right? So that's where those extra
even
extra
in
kills are
Fortnite,
coming
the
into
middle
equation.
class gets screwed, huh?
I know, right? Bernie for Epic Games.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Let's bring our first caller in, guys. It's been a second. Let's bring in our first guy. What's up? What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, my name's Arike. I'm calling from the UK. It's 1:30 a.m. here.
Ooh,
Nice.
What a hero.
what a hero!
Finally
What a
managed
man!
to turn up after finding every single way possible to miss.
Perfect.
FN,
Well,
but finally after 12 episodes, I'm looking forward to speaking today.
awesome. We're super excited to have you on. What do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I am very much aware that with the recent change, people are becoming very concerned for the future of competitive Fortnite and will it remain relevant. And of course, the meta plays a massive part. But I'd like to talk about another important thing which keeps competitive Fortnite relevant, and that is the content creators and also the general passion that people have for competitive Fortnite and the general interest that people have. And my fear is that, as has been the case ever since the OG squad scrim days, there just isn't enough interest in the vast majority of top competitive Fortnite players. People are still clinging on far too much to only following the very most popular players. And I think that this is going to limit the lifespan of competitive Fortnite because I think the fan base isn't passionate enough. Now, of course, I think this is a problem, so I'm going to suggest a solution. And the solution is basically the people I'm talking to. Now, I want to stress I'm not just coming on here to schmooze about you guys as much as I really appreciate Hotline FN. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
I'll allow it.
Of course, but I don't. That's not my only aim here. My aim here is to talk about a legitimate issue, and I really think that things like Hotline FN, things like Ballas and Shire Wages and board reviews of lots of a wide variety of players who've qualified for the World Cup. Things like the analysis from Sundown on the live cast, analyzing all the different players, not just the most popular ones, and anything which big figures in the competitive community can do to get people interested in everyone, the entire lobby, and not just 3 or 4 players, is ultimately what's going to get people interested in competitive Fortnite, hooked on competitive Fortnite, and wanting to come back, even if not everything is perfect. I've obviously, in terms of not just esports but sports, I don't just follow competitive Fortnite, and I just don't think I've ever seen a fan base, in inverted commas, which seems to know so little and care so little about the players that play the game. And this is still the case even in the World Cup when Aqua and Nyrox run in duos. Everyone was far more interested in the fact that Mongrel and Mitra came 6th and were trying to call them the duo of the tournament, despite the fact that I find it very difficult to believe that when they haven't won, or quite frankly, they were never in contention to win the tournament, while Aqua and Nyrox literally won a third of the game.
There's so many examples of literally like an amazing story unfolding in front of us and just being completely ignored, right? And I think back to, I think I had a couple of tweets about, Winter Royale being ruined by the spectacle of the sword, and we're kind of still still a little bit upset about talking about the B.R.U.T.E, but Nolan had an amazing performance in Winter Royale NA, but nobody remembers him because we, as a community and as the show itself, in terms of showing off the amazing stories, did a terrible job at pushing, showing Nolan actually winning games and actually, getting some eliminations and staying alive until the end and being the guy who wins without even using the sword. And that's such a sad thing. Same thing with Cease and Elevate. We saw them one fight, right? One fight on the mainstream of the World Cup broadcast, maybe a little bit more than that. But they got third place, come from behind. They had shambles first couple of games, and then all of a sudden, boom, up at the top. Nobody talked about it. Not a single person. It is difficult. Don't get me wrong. It's freaking incredibly difficult. But you're right. It's up to the community, right? Everybody. It's not just people who have clout or whatever who can make content and reach a lot of people. It's literally everybody. Everybody needs to figure out why they like competitive Fortnite. And it's not just watching Tfue. It's not. Trust me. It's really not, because Tfue's viewership was only so big during the World Cup because he was playing a competitive event. So
one thing that I think inevitably though affects also how much people get noticed is how much they're actually shown on stream. And the example of Nolan, one big problem is that we barely saw Nolan on stream at all. When Zexro and who was it, Vape Jesus, won the first full skirmish back last year, they were barely shown at all on stream.
Exactly.
And exactly the same thing happened to EU Elevate and Cease in the World Cup. I had to go back into the replays and see what on earth did Cease and Elevate do to actually get in such a good position, because I just didn't see them at all.
What were viewership numbers again for World Cup, Bala? Do you know off the top of your head, ballpark? Like, it wasn't awful. Like, it was pretty good.
2 million.
Yeah, like it was pretty good.
2 million.
Yeah,
like,
it's really good.
Like third place should have seen a much bigger bump, just on every aspect, on every social than what you got, right? But I also don't want to blame everything on production. I think the production is constantly stumbled in trying to find though how to push those narratives, right? And how to push the players and the contestants beyond just the one or two already big names, you know what I mean, into prominence. I'm stoked that Booga kind of blew up after first place. Super disappointed that it hasn't trickled down like at all, right? And it's not just the production's fault, obviously, right? And also, like, things are kind of skewed in Fortnite because Fortnite's like the biggest game on Twitch the majority of the time, right? Like Tfue and before that Ninja were like de facto the biggest streamers, right, on Twitch. And so, like, you look at like League of Legends or something like that, a lot of those players, like, they're not averaging, it's pretty incredible for someone who's not Faker to have 10,000 viewers. Like, that's nutty, right? For a lot of these other competitive games, some of the best and biggest competitive games with huge, old, vibrant scenes. And so I don't know exactly where the problem is, and I don't think I think the viewership of the World Cup and the viewership that Tfue and Booga enjoy almost every day, I don't think the issue is just a lack of eyeballs that are interested. I think it's something else, and I think that I don't know, Fortnite's kind of like this viewership based culture for, like, it's so heavily rooted in Twitch, right? And
streamer focused.
Yeah, it's streamer focused, right? For better or for worse, right? And that's and that's I don't know. That's just a very different route from a lot of other esports, and I'm curious what the fix is for that, right? Other esports are able to thrive on just the big events being popular and those main events being watched, right? So maybe the answer is just in more and more and better production can drive that. And more and better production drives, orgs being more interested and raising salaries and all that kind of stuff too, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Ulrich, we're gonna continue talking. Thanks for the question, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. No problem.
Good one, man.
Thank you very much.
And Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, man. Also, could I add on to that point? Yeah.
Of course.
I think, like, coming up in the scene, that was one of the most frustrating things, was really the summer skirmish was pro-am pretty much every week. Like, it was like 72 in Chap. Like, they were nuts at the time, right? But we really don't know how good they were compared to like scrims and stuff, right? Because like I always fought this back in the day, and I'm not knocking them down, right? Because they were still like the best of the best. And I doubt like if it was a lobby of 100 pros, they would have done any different. But the thing is, we don't know. Like the coming up in the scene, I was coming up right when the summer skirmish was happening. I got on one week of the fall skirmish or summer skirmish. That was like my first tournament ever, and I got never invited again. And they would always show one of these streamers, right? Then at WSOE happens, and I was winning that event for pretty much the entire time. And I go back through the VODs, and it's like Myth and Hamlin's and all the TSM boys are literally showed the entire time. Well, like literally we had a lead, and every game we were doing well. Every game we had like 5 to 7 kills and top 10. And like we were showed like 3 times. The last game they showed us because like it was kind of, they had to, right? And so I think really, I don't know if there's a way that Fortnite could like really chop that off, and I don't think they ever will, because yes, that would help, but it's not the Fortnite way to not show the streamers, because at the end of the day they think that's why everyone's there. And so like as a community, the only way we can change that is if a third-party event comes up and they actually feel like, wow, like we can change this, and they do like something where they have like the top 10 standings, and they literally just show like people in the top 10 late game, and they like switch in between them to know where people are, and like they stick to that top 10. I think
Whoever
that's really
rolls in and rolls out. Yeah, well, and another interesting thing is Epic mentioned way back in the day, I don't know, maybe not that long ago, a couple months back, how they were interested in the future allowing everybody who plays in a LAN tournament to stream their point of view. And things like that would, like, I don't know if it'll ever actually happen through Epic, but things like that would also just be big in and of themselves, especially if it's actually pushed, right? Like, you know, I'll watch, you know, matches at Evo, and they've got like their Twitter handles and their Twitch handles up on stream along with their names, like in the main production, right? Because they want these people to be known to succeed, because they care about the scene and the games they're playing, and
it goes in a circle, and that helps everyone.
Yeah, they could definitely could have done that, even just with the World Cup or anything prior, and hopefully going forward. I don't know. Paul, looked like you had something.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many things. This is my job, right? Like literally trying to tell these stories and trying to put these people's names out there and stuff like that. Like, this is my job, and I honestly do feel like people in my position have failed on broadcast. Actually, just straight up, we have not done a good job of trying to push those stories. Half the time, we see Myth and we get excited about him rather than saying, hey. And this is no diss to Myth, but he's kind of irrelevant in this game, right? He's 48th. This duo is 48th. Sure, he's stream. Sure, he's a big streamer, but like, let's watch Season Elevate. Let's watch Psalm. Let's watch all this stuff. Let's watch those stories rather than Myth dying to a quad crasher bug, because like, you're laughing because that was an actual moment. We watched him trying to engage or something. It was a weird sequence of, okay, still he died, okay, cool, relevant, I guess, but let's go watch somebody else, somebody who's actually going to win the tournament. I think observing has a huge job here to try to track those stories, and I think they did a much better job in World Cup.
Yes, I agree.
And we've all, the entire team, both Epic and, sorry if I smacked my mic there, Epic, the talent team, you know, everybody tried as much as possible to boost up the observing and the casting to try to follow those stories. We had a whole system set up where we were trying to push stories up to the caster so that they could see what was happening, right? When I saw somebody go down, like Booga in game 2, I tried to push that message up to the caster so that they could know, and they realize, okay, Booga's down. He's in first place after game 1, but he's down. Like, that is huge. This is an opportunity. This is the moment for these guys to start pushing up. Psalm and Creo now have the chance. Let's go tune in with them, because they got second and third the game before. Let's go see where they're at. I don't care if they're not doing anything. Let's just show them real quick. Okay, they're still alive. Okay, let's move on.
Do you think that there's a like talent level lack of trust from Epic in decent color commentary? Or is it just because they just want to show action and it has nothing to do with the talent? Because those sort of moments, like you mentioned, sorry, say it again.
Who are the color commentators
At
World Cup, for example?
I mean, off the top of my, it's hard. It's hard to put anyone in that box because, like, the observing system is pushed to not give those opportunities. They want to jump between action on the big names and not sit too long on people who aren't involved in things where color would shine, right? To really paint a strategic story of.
I don't think so. I don't agree
match.
with that. I think the observing does not matter to a color commentator's job, right? They could ignore an irrelevant fight and talk about the story developing in front of them throughout the rest of the game. They could completely ignore it because it's not again, if we're watching it, sure, it's happening. The viewer can see it. Let's forget about this fight, man. Let's talk about the fact that these guys that we just watched, let's continue talking about that story and pushing it all the way through, right? There's nobody who does that. There's literally not a single caster who does that because we haven't been put in those positions. True. I don't think it's because of the observing though. Right.
Sure.
The World Cup broadcast, the online qualifiers trained us to be in such a way that not a single one of us was a color commentator, except in between games because it was all end games. So you had to cast the end game.
Yeah, it was it. Yeah, exactly.
Katowice had great opportunities for that, and the problem with Katowice was it was stacked with color commentators, who were not trained and who didn't have the opportunities. But because we were all color commentators, there was only 2 play-by-play. There was only Stress and Stresscast, the League of Legends caster, and James Kaplan, who's casted all sorts of games. And everybody else was a color commentator, but it was so focused on tips and tricks and analysis and stuff like that, not story color. Yeah, and we all did a great job at actually doing the story pushing and stuff like that, and that was my favorite broadcast ever, like because of it.
Yeah. As I get ready to pull in our next caller here, do you think, and this is kind of out there, but do you think that there's room in the competitive Fortnite production world to do some of these larger events, not live, not live with some chunk of delay that allows for keying in on players and fights that happen simultaneously, whatever the situation is? Do you think that can be conducive? That gives you more opportunities to focus on more players, right? It lets you stretch a 20-minute match out, 25-minute match, 30-minute match out to maybe 40, 45 minutes, you know what I mean? And throw more
I don't think that
viewership around.
I just don't think that would work with like the way Fortnite is really, like, mid games are already so slow for most that if anything, I feel like they should show a mid game fight, like maybe in like a camera and show the fights, to get like the view of the zone. But I don't think they should like stop and focus on a fight for like 10 minutes or like 5 minutes or whatever, probably not that long, and then drag out the game and then be like, and then hop right back into the same point, because I don't know. I just don't think it would work with the way like live games are presented and the way like with a battle royale, I don't know. It would be weird. It would be such a weird test, especially if it was like an actual event like LAN where like people are there live.
It's been tried before. Non-live esports doesn't work. It's a trash format. It just never works.
Not the wave.
NHL and StarCraft has tried, and it was a great production. It was amazing on following a bunch of stuff. And nobody wanted to watch it because it was not live.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Literally great production. It was amazing. I loved watching that show, but nobody watched it because it wasn't live. And when there's so many live things, so many instant reactions, so many things that you can all talk about online at the same time, and engage even with Tfue when he gets a clutch, like, man, that is the feeling that people want. So I don't think that can work. I really think that, number one, trios are going to help a huge amount, 33 stories rather than 50 or rather than 100. We've talked about that before. But I think we as a community need to talk about the stories that we want to see, right? Talk about what kinds of stories we want to see. There was actually a great post on the competitive subreddit about what stories the observing team should be following and what we should be doing.
That was a phenomenal post.
And yeah, but it gets ignored for a lot of people, right? It doesn't get ignored by me. I try to push it to a lot of people, but it gets ignored because there's so many other things we have to focus on. Fortnite is the hardest game to produce and to cast and to broadcast because of this reason exactly. Because of what Ulrich says about all these people, it's really hard to get a community invested. yeah, if we could do that again, I really think we'd be pushing the boundaries of what makes esports really, 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 really good. But it's hard.
Okay. No. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's bring in our next caller. Hey, how you doing? What's your name? Where are you calling from? You were currently muted.
Monk.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Hey.
Sure. Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Austin, Texas, and I'm Nocturnal Machine.
Nocturnal Machine from
And
Austin. Nice. What do you want to talk about tonight?
All right, let me mute y'all because the relay's crazy in my ear. So my topic was about how Epic's really dropped the ball when it comes to like documenting aspects of the game, the technical aspects, some of the physics in the game, the battle royale game, and then a lot of the stuff in creative, and how it's pretty much non-existent. They started out with like an official kind of janky like forum kind of. It was more so for posting events and posting to, I guess, their help desk for issues with accounts. But I think as of May 29th, they officially shut it down, and they no longer had a forum. And then I guess they kind of just pawned it off on Reddit.
Yep.
And I don't know. I think it's kind of lazy and a bad move on their part, because we don't really have anything in official capacity to reference if they add settings, that aren't properly documented in the game.
How does that affect you? Like, can you give us an example of what kind of things that are frustrating to deal with?
Yeah, there's tons of settings. So, I mean, starting off, when I first started playing the game, I had absolutely no idea, and I had to Google and YouTube the crap out of everything. But more and more, I started learning. Like, for instance, like most people don't even realize how the sensitivities work as far as the aim and the ADS, and how like ADS is not its own separate sensitivity. It's like a percentage or portion of your standard aim. And like recently, I think 2 patches ago, they released like a foot pedal functionality and a configuration setting stating that you can designate your mouse as your movement input. I mean, even now, I still don't fully understand what those do.
Got it. So you're talking about technical settings and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Or even just
like
ghost
gameplay mechanics.
Yeah, and even just ghost changes in general, right? Because they did that with the storm flip and the sniper recently with Arena too.
Yeah, and fall damage for the hoverboards as
Driftboard.
well.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
That was kind of a bug. That was a bug, right? But
Was it? Okay.
yeah. Anyway, we're interested in talking about this.
Multi-threading.
Well, we'll talk about this a
Yeah.
bit. Thanks a bunch for bringing that topic to the show tonight, Nocturnal Machine.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks, boss.
And,
You
keep
too.
Listening.
So
think that's just,
no, go for it, Elevate.
sorry. Okay. I think that's just kind of like a Fortnite thing to do. Like, like what casuals are gonna look into settings and like all the fine details of a game, right? So why would Fortnite spend money and time on that? I don't know. It's just like, for me,
Yeah.
I wish they had that, right? Because CS is one of those things that's really good about that. I feel like every CS blog post, like, almost says like the exact what they did and everything they changed and like the percentages they changed. And I feel like, for me, it's just like another thing like to this game that's kind of like a negative.
I don't agree with that. CS does not do a good job of it. Sure, it might detail some changes and stuff like that, but it's still technical mumbo jumbo that's impossible for a person to actually go through unless they really take the time to learn what the heck is the mechanics. I don't think any game does that well. I don't think there's any.
No,
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
I think
but-
it's a matter of just like whether or not it's in the patch notes at all, right? Like we have
Yeah.
constant changes like this that
Come
don't
on,
even exist
so
in the
many
patch
games
notes.
do random small shadow changes and they mess
yeah.
up their patch notes. I mean, I understand as a developer, Tim, you think that is something that is very easy to do, but apparently it's not for video
Apparently.
game companies. Because think about this, they cannot rely on their automated systems to just like spit out all the push and commits the notes that their developers have, because they have to care about their image. It's a public facing thing. It's not just a change log. They have to carefully word every single thing to make sure that it is going to be received well by the community and understood by the community. So it's not something automated.
The thing is, though, like there are games that do a good job, and it's not a Hotline FN episode.
Do a good job
Tim,
of what? Of patch of
patch notes.
Patch notes.
Yeah. Like it's not. Like, I was gonna say it's not a Hotline FN episode till Tim mentions League of Legends. So there it is. But like, have you looked at a Major League of Legends patch? That shit is like 6 pages long. You scroll for eternity. You've got the technical mumbo jumbo, 8% change to 2%, and it's always accompanied. Every change is accompanied with a paragraph of this is why we changed it. This is how we changed it. This is what we hope the change should accomplish. They do that every week.
Yeah,
every week they do that.
There's a difference though between the technical like settings and stuff like that versus game mechanics, and I agree.
Sure.
I 100% agree.
Sure.
Like,
Okay, that's fair.
I looked for so long for Storm Surge stuff. We didn't get it until the AMA. Like,
Also,
that was pretty nutty.
Like with Fortnite CS:GO, you can find the stuff. Like you can go into console and then you can like find the different percentage or like the settings, and there's like and with that you're actually able to find settings. There's a config, that you can change stuff and see like new settings.
But the only reason that people know how to use that is because there's modders and stuff like that help everybody figure out what the heck is going on.
But with Fortnite,
can't really do that in Fortnite.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is like even in Fortnite,
we don't even have that. The community
don't have the modders. Like we have our creative, which is like a really weird way to mod Fortnite. That was they wanted people to be able to modify Fortnite without it being like a third party thing, and that's why they created creative. And so there's no that is a problem because there's literally no way you can tell. Like with Storm Surge, you would have to go really do some really weird things to find. I don't even know if there's anywhere you could find in Fortnite the actual numbers for Storm Surge.
Yeah, in game. Yeah, it's not a single mention of Storm Surge in game.
Yeah, even if you
would be
went
totally
into the files,
blindsided by
I doubt it would say it. Yeah,
and you don't even know what it's gonna do. If it pops up on your screen for the first time, and you're new to scrimming, or you somehow get a crazy lobby, you have no clue what's about to happen to you. You're like, what's that mean? 250 below what?
Imagine a world where instead of putting the B.R.U.T.E in the game, they put some tutorials in the game and some descriptions of mechanics and some basic tutorials on how to build and do a ramp wall, ramp floor wall.
Help the bad players get better? No. Just give them a way to get
too good of an idea, Bala.
No, stop it right now. I think that the technical issues not being in patch notes. I mean, I would love if they were in patch notes, but I kind of get them not being explained all the time. Obviously, it'd be better if they were. My biggest gripe are things and it's not just like a one-off issue. It happens repeatedly. Maybe not the exact same issue, but this week we've got the examples of the Storm Flip and the Scout Sniper being added back into Arena without any mention, except for the mention weeks ago of these will probably make it back in after World Cup at some point,
Yeah.
We have constant changes like that, and even things like map changes have always bugged me, right? Or will they'll change how much mats different items give when you hit them,
Yeah.
Like that. I remember when they changed beds and didn't mention it at all, and you're just like, what? This is actually pretty important. Is pretty important, but
Also those birch trees, they changed a long time ago. That was
the ones that suck now, or no, the birch trees are fine, but now it's the small pine trees suck.
No,
they're so
they
bad.
changed it back. They're fine now again.
Yeah,
they used to be literally. They used to give you 2 wood or something.
Yeah, 7 wood, I think, if you farmed it, and that was an arena. So, yeah, no, I definitely, I don't know how they could really fix that other than have an actual separate dev log. I don't know. That's just
no. I mean, the fix is you have a communications team that is in charge of it. That's their job, right? And they have that to a degree. They just disagree on what's important. Yeah.
And the other thing is a goal of theirs that was evidenced by the blog post today is that they want things to be new and engaging, and they don't want things to be spoiled and then patch notes. They want somebody to go into a house and discover there's a new basement, right? Oh shit, there's a new basement. This patch is so cool.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
There's been so many instances of that where you're just like, oh wow, okay, cool. There's this crazy new map change. Oh, what are those telescopes? Oh, the what is it? There's a meteor in the sky. There's a meteor. It's gonna hit tilted. If they put that in the patch, that magic would be ruined, right?
Sure, but there's a difference between a new basement and the telescopes, right? But even then, map additions, things like that. I can see the argument but not for things like changing how much materials already existing items give and that kind of stuff, right? Like that's just kind of nonsense. The people who don't care aren't going to be looking at your patch notes anyway, and the people who do care, like, would love to be able to expect them to be there. I don't know. All right, let's bring 100%. in our next caller. Bring in the next caller. Where are you calling from? What's your name and what do you want to talk about tonight?
Hey, what's up, guys? Somebody's gone here from Raleigh, North Carolina. Wanted to talk about the final release of the rules for the Fortnite Championship Series. I think this is the best we've seen. Structure. It's basically a full season, breaking down each week. There's plenty of money to win weekly, plenty of tournaments going on besides the Championship Series.
Yep.
And it also includes of these series points, which I think is big, because not only can you qualify with one single week, now key players that consistently are among the top 100 players are rewarded for that consistency, and I think that'll create some better storylines, like you guys were talking about earlier. We could see some more teams get in there and consistently be right top 8 or top 4. I don't know. I'm excited for it, guys. I mean, the state of the game isn't great right now. I mean, format is awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for the topic. It's funny. Your internet is cutting out like at the perfect moment.
I know.
So we got literally everything, but there was these moments of just blank. Like,
because we're aware of the situation, we know what's happening. But thank you so much for bringing the topic. Thank you a bunch, and have a fantastic evening. Somebody's gone.
Hey, you too.
Okay, so for this, I think we should go like chronological, like with it. So I have a point that kind of rides with this. Actually, I don't know if I'll bring it up now.
I like it. Let's go. Okay. Let's go. Chronological. I like this. We're going on the storytelling.
Okay. Well, first thing I'm going to do is, like, this is kind of separate from this question, but, like, with Season X, because we're talking about the series, I think I'll throw it in, is, like, the first thing we need is really, we need the pro players need a more of a break in between these events, because 2 weeks is, like, we just got out, like, grinding for 5 months, and now we're right back in. But at the same time, that's 100 players they're catering for, so they won't do that. But that's just a side thought. But
100 players. It was the entire community.
Well, yeah, true. So I would like it more if we had maybe like an extra like 2 weeks, like a month break, and then we start it. But you know, it's fine. It's a tournament, so I'm not complaining. But going into the actual like qualifications, I just gotta say hallelujah. Like, really, it's the thing we talked about with Bala was, a round of applause. Like, the funnel was the worst thing in competitive Fortnite for me. The funnel was so awful for being a comp player in a random BR game. The fact that you have like 40 million people and you're trying to shove it into 200 or like 170 players for the World Cup within 10 weeks. It's like you're cramming this funnel, and like it's so hard to get like qualified just because it's so RNG. Like,
well, they wanted to reward RNG. Like, it's actually kind of crazy how this competitive series is set up, and this most recent blog post directly fly in the face of each other.
Yeah, I know.
Like, directly, like completely. Consistency isn't a spectacle. Like, what?
Yeah.
And the majority of players are making it in through consistency.
Yeah. But if we're gonna give them crap for the RNG that like the mech brings, we also gotta reward Epic by being happy, because this is the first like really good thing. I guess the really positive thing we've talked about on the show too. Like, this is a very good thing. I'm like really happy about this.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about reward, but be happy. Like, I suppose, like, if you're gonna be playing in these events, awesome, right? They're fantastic events. Bala, I know like competitive formats are near and dear to your heart. How do you feel about the FCS setup?
It's amazing. That's it. There's literally there's very little faults. There was a tweet by Seabass from FaZe he said literally there's only one fault with this, and that's because there's not a max lobby in the finals, and I argued with that. I was like, yeah, that's not even really a fault. Like I'd rather have a non-max lobby because the game is they can't actually fit 100 people in or max teams.
Yeah.
There's so many instances of people just 50-50, and unfortunately that's what happens because there's too many people in the game. So anyways, that's the only fault. I think we finally have reached a format. I still think that there could be improvements, but this is something that we should all be. I don't think there's gonna be any complaining. Well, okay, come on, we're talking about the Fortnite community. Of course, there's gonna be complaining, but there really shouldn't be any complaining because of how perfect this the stages are all throughout the way. Sure, there could be improvements, but I think that the most we're gonna complain about is 10 matches in 3 hours, that kind of thing. Even I have arguments about the fact that that's not something that people should complain about. I think that's totally fine. It's just, it's good. It's all around good, and it's shocking to me that we have this like this on the other side. We have Tilted Town. We have Mechs. We have to list it. It makes no sense.
They're totally nuts.
I'm excited to play. I'm excited to watch. I'm excited for the stories to develop. I think it'll be easier for people to catch on to stories. Especially with the FCS points and stuff like that, and especially because we are only watching 5 trios. I wish it was LAN finals, but you can't have LAN finals every single time.
Yeah, right. There is something to be said. Like, while I agree that the overall tournament format is awesome, best we've ever had, I think it's going to be really nice. I'm sure there's by the end we'll have ways to improve it more. I do wish that the individual game point format had something similar to B.R.U.T.E would have been phenomenal, right? But they haven't even experimented with something like that yet. Or even, I just wish they had stuck to the current arena trios point layout that heavily emphasizes placement over kills. It's
the same. Is it not the same?
It's 7 points for a kill in arena trios and 20 in solos.
No. I know it's solos versus trios. We were talking about
in this one. It's just 1 point per kill. 1 point per kill, and only 3 points for the first placement threshold. No, because it's 60 points for the first placement threshold, and 7 a kill. So like you have to get a lot of kills to make up that first placement threshold versus 3. You have to get like 8 kills to make up that placement threshold.
I think that's because they want bots to be able to sit in a box all game and then get Champion League though.
Which is good. We all want placement better because placement better makes it so that
placement's more fun
in games. Yeah, true.
Placement's more interesting.
Yep. I mean, it's a win-win. So.
Yeah. So I just wish that per game format was changed up a little bit. I was a little disappointed to see like the old format just kind of tossed back in after the arena changes we saw. But in general,
I like the
FCS format.
You know what I have an issue with is the fact that two things. Let's start with. This is a 5-week tournament, and there's no breaks in between. You literally have to waste
once again.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you want to qualify for this tournament, you have to no life it, and unfortunately, that's deteriorating everybody's health and sanity and whatever. But at the same time, too, think about this: there is no space for any third-party tournament to do anything right now.
Yeah.
There was never in World Cup. There was never in the weeks between World Cup. And there still is nothing because there's tournament every week and even almost every day for the cash cups. So it sucks, man. They tried to push this licensing. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I would hope not, because I remember back at Secret Skirmish, it sounded like they wanted to release, the spec system and push it for third parties to be able to use and make their own stuff. And then the licensing stuff came out for supported creator. The customs came out. And there's just no time. That sucks. That really sucks.
Imagine ESL. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine ESL hosts the league.
A GG circuit.
And no Mechs. No Mechs. ESL hosts the league. You're not allowed to use Mechs.
But Epic still has control on third parties, right? They can say, no, if you want to run a tournament, you have to use Mechs, which
exactly.
Would, to be honest.
They 100% would.
They've done that. Boomboxes and season 8. Regardless. Okay, next point. Next point is the fact that the cash cups are literally for practice. It feels like they're there to but why can we just have a real practice system?
They're just there to keep people playing. They're literally there to keep people playing. We kind of already touched on this, right? Like if you're good enough to make money, That's like, if you're competitively minded, either you're good enough to make money or you're not interested in the competitive side of Fortnite. You know what I mean? Like that feels like the direction it's pushing people in. And so more cash cups means more opportunities to earn money, which like people always said before, Fortnite is only propped up by cash. And while that might not be the case, generally speaking, it's certainly after today's blog post feeling more and more like that's the case for the competitive scene. And in that light, it makes perfect sense why they pushed out all these cash cups, right? Like, I don't know, at least from my vantage. Okay, all right, let's grab in this next grab in our next caller here. Hey,
Yo.
What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm SARS from Fate. I love your content, and it's an honor to be in a call with the Key2C athlete. And
Thank you.
and Bala, you're legit the best VOD reviewer, and I approve so much from you.
Okay, new rule. If you're gonna come on this show, you have to compliment me and only me. We don't share the love. If you're in the call, you only get to compliment me. It's the new Hotline FN rule. What topic did you want to talk about tonight?
How miserable the Fortnite community is.
That's the topic.
I can take that pretty far. I mean,
so you specifically mentioned about the prize pools.
Oh yeah, in the upcoming Trios event, top 31 gets the same prize as top 250, and yeah, if you think about it, it's kind of fucked. If you want to try, if you as like people that trying to practice and play customs, and you're trying to like I don't know, be top one, and you get, it's so demotivating. And yeah.
All right, I think we get the point.
We get the point. Thank you for
man.
bringing this topic. Have a fantastic evening, Elevate's cutest fan.
bye, man.
Okay, so specifically we can talk about the prize pool distribution and how it's demotivating, right? You've got 31 to 250 all share the same prize pool amount. And is there something to be said? It doesn't matter to me in a lot of ways what the prize pool number is for 31 through 250. Just the simple fact that it's the same for everybody is a demotivating factor for trying your best and being the best you can be, right? Because if I get 250th place and it's exactly the same as 31st, whether that's $10 or $200, that's another demoralizing factor. Either like I'm the best, or I get really lucky, similar to World Cup weeks, or I get nothing, right? Like, or I get, I don't get rewarded for the time and effort and skill like I feel like I should.
Yeah. So
I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I think the point he brought up was kind of different from the points I think of. So for me, like, I want top 10 to have all the prize money.
Yeah.
Right? Because like that's better for me. But like him saying like 30 through 250 is all the same, it kind of just shows like the community that what Epic is pushing with these tournaments is that you can win money by playing in these. And so I don't,
anybody can win.
Yeah, exactly. So like like in the past World Cup weeks, they wanted like if you even qualify for Sunday and you play like games and you get half the points as first place, you'll make like $100 or whatever, right? Sure. So like they want that. And so like those people in that threshold, it's kind of weird because like it's really like, what are you catering for? Are you catering for the top 100 players, which is top 30, right, in trios? Or are you catering for the top 3,000 or top like 500 players, which is the 100th through 30th, right? So I don't know. I think there's arguments for either way. One, you want to give the best players the most money.
Like the push narrative from Epic aside, you still have like, if 30 through, I don't know, I don't have the exact price distribution pull up in front of me, but if 31 through 250 are all making $200, right? That could be 31st making 1,000, 32nd making 800, so on and so forth, down to 250 making, $25 or whatever. And that alone incentivizes higher placements and stuff without them still getting you can make money just from playing. but
Yeah.
still rewarding the better players successively up the chain, right? Like that's kind of my opinion. Like why have these massive brackets all making the same amount when you could just spread it all around down the line, right? Like
Yeah.
Well, there's a weird thing in this game where there are so many different games going on at the same time. It's not really with this format, as there's only 150 teams in the last round before you qualify for the finals, or the heats in the finals at least. So there's a weird point where it's like, well, 21st through maybe 60th or something actually performed the same. Like if you think about it, their points might be slightly different, but based on how they played throughout the games, it's the same. So you kind of have to have these buckets.
that's an interesting
Exactly,
point.
yeah.
But do you think that
actually a good
holds?
point, I think of that.
Do you think that holds though with only 150 teams being in the finals, or in each Sunday?
Not
With 150,
as
it's a little
much.
different. Yeah, I think it's more like there's more of a gap there. Yeah.
So up to 150, right? So and then the rest of the people up to 250 are still coming from the
That's a good
round
point.
2.
That's true. That's true.
So-
It's like a pity prize,
I do-
basically.
Yeah, I feel like there definitely should be that influence of Tim up to 150 points, or 150th, what you were saying.
At least,
right?
yeah.
That should be the bucket, and then maybe you
Exactly.
want to give 100 more people, whatever, some pity prizes. But I don't know. It's a weird thing, because again, this is actually an example of compromise from Epic, right? Because we were talking about. I think we might have already brought this up. Sorry if I'm rehashing old points, but it's an example of compromise in the fact that in World Cup, everybody was upset about the fact that the first place only ate I'm reading chat. It's like only got $10,000 for first place in the World Cup qualifier
Yeah.
weeks, and here it's increased a lot of it's more top heavy now. But on the flip side, you're not incentivizing everybody can win anymore, because it's not up to 1,500 people who are getting money. It's weird.
I just
It's
want to
also-
point out that Bala just said there was a compromise from Epic. Man, it would be nice to see a few more of those.
Yeah.
You guys
Also,
ready for the
with
next?
this-
Oh, go for it.
Sorry, with this prize, like the way like the very top gets a lot more money compared to World Cup weeks, it's
Yeah.
like I guarantee you Cease would not have been like trying to have like 100 mats late game on purpose, and Riverson wouldn't have used pistol only like during the World Cup weeks, right?
If there was
And
more cash
Bizzle
on the
wouldn't
line.
have used a gun, right, or no guns, right? So like, I think this is also a way they might be reacting to the way like literally once you qualified, you didn't give a single crap about what was going
It's
on.
so confusing, man, because it was spectacle, and the Bizzle no guns thing was the best spectacle
I
we
know.
could have asked for, man. That
What a
thing was
spectacle.
beautiful.
Yeah,
That
it's
video
so
has
funny.
4 million views on
Yeah.
YouTube right now. Like, Cease and after week 1 and week 3, when he was doing all the troll like heavy snipe shots off of zip lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was perfect. That's what they want,
WK
right? I don't
everyone.
get it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got our next caller in to talk about a related topic here. What's her name and where are you calling from?
Yo, what's up? My name's Bluff, and I'm calling from NA East.
And
So basically, yeah.
worst region.
Best region.
Yeah, agreed.
Shitty beaches. Worst region.
So, I know you guys already talked about the prize pool and stuff, but I'm like a top like 200, 300 player in like solo World Cup, like consistently.
Quick
So-
fire.
Little flex.
Well, so I was expecting like maybe a top 500, top 250, like for the base prize for solos, but it being like top 40, top 20, it's kind of demotivating for a lot of like semi-pro players, I guess you could say, because like all the slots are filled up for the really good players, like my boy Elevate, and
I don't know about for solo, tell me.
so like then the player base for competitive is mostly revolved around money right now, because the game is like in a bad state. So like if there's not as many slots for not as good people to get money, then they might not play as much in competitive.
True, but in what game do semi-pros should make? I don't know. It's weird. It's true.
Say
It's
it.
like such
Say
a
it.
big
Elevate.
player
Say it.
base.
Say what you were just about to say.
Like, in what world should semi-pros be making like good money for not being the best of the best in a competitive game. So
He's
like,
saying you shouldn't make as much money as he makes.
well, I'm not saying that, but like it's a weird line, and I don't mean to be like sound like I have a huge ego or anything, but like, well, first off, I'm awful at solos, so I'm like thinking of more of like the solo players in your mindset. But it's a weird line, right? Because Fortnite will want these people, these semi-pros. There needs to be a way they come up into the scene, so there needs to be prize pools for you guys. But at the same time, like the top should get rewarded. So I think a better system would almost, I don't know, it's weird. I can't really propose a solution because I don't have one in my mind, but the fact that, I don't know what I'm exactly trying to say, but I'm saying like, okay, do it, boss.
Have a solution. More opportunities.
True.
Where it's not everybody playing at the same time, right? Let's have some opportunities that are only for contenders, and anybody in champs cannot play. For example, that's a drastic a suggestion. But like, yeah, let's have some more regional things. Like, let's have some local Florida events where it's just open and everybody can come, but not everybody's going to fly out, right? Same thing with TwitchCon and PAX West and sort of things. Let's just have more events. That gives the semi-pros the possibility, right? These events are the best of the best. Everybody in the world is playing on them because they are the most money and they are the most prestige because there's nothing else out there. If there was other stuff out there, that is how other events support their semi-pro scene. Disco has local lands everywhere. League of Legends has the same thing, right? Same sort of tournaments. They have college events. The CSL is a huge thing, right? So that's the thing. And then on the other side, I think Bluff. I don't know if you realize this, but there are 400 people qualifying, 400 players qualifying for FCS in NA East in Europe and NA West, and I think Brazil too. So there's actually a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot more
opportunity than World Cup. Yeah, exactly.
I
Which
think
is nice.
even with World Cup, you already saw like probably 25% of that lobby before World Cup I'd not heard of before. I'd never heard their name. Like Dubs, like I knew that guy like barely, like his name barely recognized because he would scrim sometimes, right? And I would see him. But Mega, like never heard of these guys. They were complete randoms before. And they showed up because they put hard work, they grinded, they played scrims every day. And at the end of the day, like, do you want to be rewarded for being okay, or do you want to be rewarded for grinding and being the best?
No, yeah, I understand that completely. I just think that like the player base will go down even more if because there's not like that many insanely good people like you. So like,
I think I disagree with that. I think that maybe like a current competitive players will maybe move on if they can make more cash with their skills somewhere else. But even if they do, all the semi-pro players like yourself and the casual players will just be excited. They'll be like, sweet, my chances to make money just went up from, jumping in a mech and doing nonsense. Not saying that that's you, but just like the more pro players that leave, the more casual players get interested in the tournaments, right? Like, I don't think that Epic needs to worry. Like, I don't think Epic's really they've shown they're really not that worried about the current competitive scene. Like,
I think they do
running
need to worry about that. I think Bluff has a point here. Sure, everybody's excited to play with the pros. Everybody's excited to be on the same level as them and be able to compare themselves against them. But guess what? When you get shit on week after week and you're so close, but you just can't break through that barrier, and there's no other way for you to prove that you're improving besides going up against Elevate and getting your ass beat, like that is so demotivating, man. And I've seen it.
What you said right there is the exact reason I quit CSGO. Like right there is like, there's just such a level where I just couldn't surpass because other pros were going down and stuff. And yeah, continue just putting that in there.
No, that's it, right? Yeah. I think that is a thing. Bluff, we can't. Bluff is somebody you are clearly in that position right now, and you're telling us that you are getting demotivated because there's not opportunity. So we gotta trust that. We gotta trust that.
Yeah. I also think it's scary that a person in the like semi-pro range, that's what I'm just saying for Bluff, like, is getting demotivated because that is. When you are coming up in the scene, the semi-pro range is when you should be the most motivated to be in a game to make it to the top. And that just means really that Fortnite doesn't have enough support for that range of players.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we talked about with that, with the statistics that they released. Sure, depending on what they define as high tier, maybe Elevate's not getting that many less kills per game, but Bluff is, and that's really going to hurt as more poor changes come in. That, like we talked about in the very beginning, right off the top, as the game feels worse to play, the desire to get better at that game drops, and it just hurts more and feels more difficult and less worth it as you're having a worse and worse time trying to just get better.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks so much, Bluff, for bringing this topic, and I hope you have a fantastic evening.
Really good talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Apologize.
One more thing on this topic. Yeah, I actually want to call out Crashy in chat. He says, I was hoping they would create a league for FNCS that would pull the top end in and then a semi-pro league that would run parallel to the pro league. Yeah, I think that is exactly the kind of opportunity I'm talking about, right? Is to have something run in parallel that the semi-pros can play, and maybe eventually they can push through to the top. That is the support for some semi-pro.
But the real value comes from these sorts of leagues and parallel leagues when a better job is being done of funneling viewership and individual support to individual players. And then there's a whole lot of value in having a smaller league. It doesn't even necessarily need to have a ton of cash put up if you know that doing well here sets me up in a good position, both skill-wise for the future and just from like my own personal gain, like on my socials and as I'm trying to grow and make money, you know what I mean? That's important. And if they can figure out a way to do that, then the scene will grow. Probably, no matter how bad the game is.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, one more thing on that. We can bring in the next caller. Is if you think about it, actually, when you think back to Ulrich 8's call about the viewing experience and about the stories, if we had these semi-pro leagues where people are already watching these guys, maybe not a lot of people, but we start to actually know their stories. There was, I count 5 people in the World Cup that I knew nothing about, literally jack shit about, nothing, because they hadn't performed in anything else because there was nothing for them to perform in. So if there's that semi thing that they could then move on, there you go. There's help in the terms of story.
I was playing against people I had no idea anything about. Like I didn't even know who they were.
Sounds like someone needed a coach. Did you reach out to Destiny's?
I mean, I knew like where
shout out Destiny's
landing, but yeah.
All right. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to our final caller for the evening. We're actually going a little over time tonight, but hey, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name, Levin.
What's up, Levin?
Yo,
the man with the voice. What's up?
Yeah, man. I'm good. I've been enjoying the show. All the topics are great. I'd love to chip in on every single topic, but obviously can't do that here. I'm here to discuss. So we've had like the first year of competitive Fortnite, kind of wrap up, right? And I'm really big into like looking at history and kind of ranking people all time, doing everything I do in football, basketball, CSGO, everything I do, I like to do, kind of top 10 list or whatever. So looking at Fortnite, right, I've been trying to, piece together a rough, brief list. But obviously with every list comes criteria, right? You have to have a criteria in order to be able to compare your list and for people to make lists that compare to yours. And obviously for me, what I've ranked as my criteria when ranking players all time is achievements as 1, main priority, mechanics as 2, your relevancy within the scene as 3. Obviously, because there's some players who early on in Fortnite, back in maybe some of skirmish times, are a lot more dominant. Now they're not as relevant, so you rank them maybe lower based on that. 4, your impact on the meta, so the impact you've had on actually how people play the game, people replicating your play style and making that the norm. And then 5th, if you had an error within the game, and how long did that error actually last, right? So when I actually submitted this list, my list based off of this for the topic, I had it as, what did I put here? I put Bizzle as 1, Sky at 2, Zay at 3, Mitra at 4, and Zextra at 5, right? Now, even looking at this list again, I feel like anything you kind of put here is interchangeable. But yeah, I just want to know what you guys think in terms of how you rank that criteria, and then the kind of names I've thrown in there, and where would you kind of rank them based off of that criteria?
Well, let's go through them, right? Let's go through them in order, right? So first one, achievements. I agree, right? I think placement and standing in past events is kind of the say all be all ultimate decider between in these sorts of conversations, right? Like
rings, baby, rings,
baby.
Exactly.
Where your championships at?
Yeah, I agree with his first place. If we're going off that, I think B.R.U.T.E, this is the first event he didn't get a top 10 in.
Yeah,
that was a LAN or an actual major event for
that's fucking insane.
It's nutty,
and that
right?
was insane to think about. It's almost a year and a half of him playing, and he's never not gone to top 10. He's never had one bad day, right?
Yeah, so
well, he's had one bad day.
Well, yeah, and I think right now, with this list, it's cool seeing B.R.U.T.E still at number 1, but I think Fortnite is wide open right now for who's going to be the best.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. In terms of if when looking at this, I think if you were to make a list as of right now, who are the top 5, maybe some of these players might not even be on that list, right? In terms of right now, obviously, but like I think a relevant thing that I've mentioned is the fact that we need to also assess context, right? Because I've seen a lot of people. Duos obviously aren't a thing anymore, but when duos, before we knew duos wouldn't be a thing, people were like, Nyrox and Aqua, best duo, they just won World Cup. And it's like, well, it doesn't work that way, right? You have to look at context. So obviously, right now, maybe we could argue some of these players not necessarily there, but all time, I think you have to put these names.
Definitely, B.R.U.T.E would be there all time.
Yeah.
I don't know about one though. I actually
that's
relevancy is a little bit more important than just raw achievements. I think relevancy. So like when I think of relevancy, I think of actually the tournaments that are most important, right? So everything up to World Cup didn't matter. It was way less important. World Cup was the biggest tournament of the year, and we were all playing for that and for over a year. So to not perform at World Cup is really it brings that value down significantly.
Yeah, if we're weighting events, the recency and the skill of the rest of the lobby takes precedence over purely the number of rings, right?
Yeah, it depends. What are we doing? Is this the top 5 players of all time?
Yeah,
or the top 5 players right now? See, if it's all time, then I would say B.R.U.T.E is number 1.
Yeah, then relevancy is not important at all.
Yeah, if we're doing then Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan, sorry, you're Michael Jordan right now sucks compared to LeBron James.
Okay, so in terms of 100%, but in terms of relevancy, then let me adjust that in terms of saying how were you able to stay relevant through different periods of time?
Yes, I think that is important with Fortnite.
Because if you're in EU, right, do you guys know Tiovsky?
Yes.
Well, I don't think he's on Kingry anymore. But there was a period in time where Tiovsky and his duo were the best duo in EU by every single BP tournament. They won every single thing. I think the next season or the next kind of couple of patches where the game kind of evolved and changed, they just weren't that anymore. So your ability to kind of stay relevant through different time periods and different patches and different seasons, I think, is what I would.
Yeah, I mean, the meta changes so often, so much. And well, that's not totally fair. The meta of Fortnite doesn't really change that much that often. It's everything else around it that changes, right? We still mostly play Fortnite the same way, season to season to season to season. It's just also having to deal with other nonsense and stuff on your way there, right? But
how much do you rank impact on the meta? Because in terms of that, I'd say that's where Zextra gets a lot of his points, right? In terms of that kind of
impact on the meta is like a induction to the Hall of Fame, not a
best player in the world
list.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think Zextra is number 5 in my opinion. How about this? Can we all do our top 5s based on this list, and then we'll talk about that? Can that work?
Okay.
We don't have a ton of time. Is the only issue there. So let's talk about this criteria and how we feel about it, right? And so we talked a bit about relevancy. We talked a bit about rings. What was your second point? I've already spaced it.
Your mechanics and how
mechanics. That's something that's interesting to me because mechanics often don't. I don't know about often, but not necessarily do mechanics have to correlate to rings, right? 2 doesn't always 100%. Lead to 1, and it feels weird to me to just put how raw mechanically good you are.
To me, man. This is esports. This is esports.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Simple is known as the best CS:GO player of all time, and He is not.
Yeah.
He's not won any. Like he's barely won anything. He won ESL in New York.
Yeah.
Wow, whoop-de-doo, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's known as the best CS:GO player.
Should he be though?
No, but if you watch Simple, it's 100% valid, and I think it's just because of the way he dominates. Like you see it, like the pure skill. You see the raw pure skill. No one even compares. No one come close. Obviously now maybe you can say Zai would come close, but that's a different conversation as a whole.
No, but we
Yeah,
can
so
have
I
a
think-
we have an obvious like candidate who fits in Bizzle right now. It's Booga, right? Booga is mind blowing mechanically. Nobody touches. I cannot think of a single player who comes close to Booga, and it's just like wow, he's if we put mechanics up there, he's in the same category as the best player of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's ever done what he's done.
Yeah.
I think obviously I'm a bit biased. I'm from the EU side, so if you're gonna put Bizzle up, Booga up there, I'm gonna put Mongrel up there.
Sure.
And obviously I've had the luxury of seeing Mongrel more just because I used to compete, and in terms of staying relevant throughout the scene, no, there's nobody that can. I think since the day I started trying to compete in comp, he's always been at the top in every single tournament, every single event, everything. He's a player. When I was even making my list, right, he's a player that suffers from the age restriction kind of thing, where the first couple of months of comp Fortnite, people like him weren't able to compete due to age restrictions, right?
Yeah.
And I think in another world where that isn't a thing, maybe we see those players compete and they are ranked differently in that way. So it's like that's another factor. How do you balance that out, right? Because there are some players who you should have maybe on this list, but they just don't have the achievements, right? So if you rank achievements high, you can't necessarily put them up. Like it's a big
Yeah,
mess.
I think to step it back and kind of look at it from like a slightly more meta angle, right, is that I think that there is a lot of value in defining publicly, especially for someone with any kind of platform like you, Levin, or like us, right? By the way, check out Levin's interviews in his podcast. Fantastic stuff.
Yes.
Bala was on an episode. You can go listen to it. You can go listen to it as soon as you're done watching this. But anyway, my point is that like I think that there is value in having a rubric. I think that rubric is going to change for between all, like yours might be on your show might be different from me on mine, but I think there is value in talking about these things and having one publicized for these sorts of conversations. It just creates a grounding point and can help remove a lot of the just like, well, I think this, well, I think that, even though it's still relative, just to have this sort of
I know my tweet for tomorrow. Thank you.
I can't even. I don't know if I can swear. Can I swear on this show? I can't. So I'm not gonna swear. You know what? I think here's to everyone, right? Everybody, put out your top 10 list. I don't know if this is what Bala's gonna do, but everybody, put out your top 10 list. When you put it out, though, put your criteria as well with it and how you've ranked your criteria. Let's make this a thing, right?
It's a movement. It's a movement.
Put your top lists and put why. Like, explain yourself. Show your work. I'm your math teacher.
This is exactly the type of thing community should be pushing.
And that's what I've been saying.
For Ulrich, like the Ulrich's point was literally there's no Ulrich 8 when he called in earlier, and I keep referencing him because I'm very, very, I love that topic. But that is something that helps, right? Now people know what to watch for. I don't think anybody knows what to watch, man. So yeah, I appreciate that. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah, that creates stories. Anyone can say, here are my top 10 best players. If they say, here are my top 10 best players and why, now people have something to discuss and they have something to watch as these players grow and as the scene grows. So I think it's fantastic.
Which is hilarious.
There's something to work towards, right? Like if like Alric said, there's a problem of, maybe the game is now being focused a bit too much towards the large amounts of money dashed out, right? I spoke to Warledge and Kraz about this. There's parents in France coming to him like, I want my kids to compete in Fortnite because of the money, right? How can they secure the money, right? Like if we have players built like wanting to grind to achieve these storylines, I want to be the greatest Fortnite player of all time. That creates more interest. That creates stories for us to watch during these tournaments, right? Like it's
100%.
It's only 100%. A positive.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Levin. This has been a really interesting topic, and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you so much.
Peace out.
That was a good way to end it.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic way to end it.
One more time, though. if you freaking like that voice, go check out Levin's stuff, man. 11 podcast, 11 open floor. He's literally an esports or a Fortnite historian, and he's great at interviewing people. So go check his shit out. It's really awesome.
Fantastic. Listen, and
Plus,
if you don't,
a great voice.
Yeah, if you don't like his voice, there are bigger problems. You need a new headset. You need to you need to figure something. You gotta figure something out.
Ears.
Yeah, I don't know. Your subjective opinion is so wrong. All right, guys, we're out of time. We're past out of time. Thank you so much, Elevate, for being on the show again, for giving us a second chance. Do you feel thoroughly impressed? Yeah. You happy you came back? Good. I'm glad we had you.
It's a compliment to you. The first time I was on here, I felt like a lot of you're still trying to figure stuff out, and second time on here, it's a lot smoother. It works. It's a lot better of a show. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep improving.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. On here. Yeah, thanks. And it's fantastic to have you. You keep grinding. You keep doing your best. Everything's gonna be great. Yeah. Elevate. Before we send you off, why don't you tell everybody what you are going to be up to and where you're gonna be getting up to it?
Gonna be streaming, gonna qualify for this trios event. Pretty easy.
I forgot to put your stream under your face.
Oh, it's
you better plug
Elevate.
it. Oh,
all right, boys, click on my name in chat.
Click on it right now. Not right now. We're not done yet.
Oh, right now? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, just gonna be doing some content for a bit and then probably focusing on this. Really excited. Hopefully it's a LAN. I don't know exactly what the plans are, but yeah. Excited to play this tournament. It's gonna be dope.
Fantastic.
Are you moving again for FCS?
Don't probably 90% yes, but it's not it hasn't been bought. You know what I mean?
Content incoming. Let's go.
And we need River to be east. River on east. Oh, we gonna be taking walls.
Classic.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
All right. Well, we're excited to watch you stream, put out the content. Thanks again for being on the show. It's been a fantastic evening, and
thank you.
Have a good night, man.
Yo, peace.
All right, Bala. Just the two of us once again. The old into the evening here. But why don't you everybody know what you're gonna be up to? I mean, you've got all kinds of stuff popping right now.
Yeah, I am going to be upgrading my system pretty much. I'm going to be playing a little bit. I'm going to be traveling next week for some awesome stuff that you'll be able to see soon. And then what else?
Can we get a leak? Can we get a leak, please?
No. Sorry. We definitely cannot. But it should be good. And you're going to be seeing my face, hearing my voice a lot in the near future, whether it's on my stuff, which is at twitch.tv/B.R.U.T.E or B.R.U.T.E everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. That's it, actually. So yeah, go check it out. There's a lot of awesome stuff recently. I'm trying to put out one of the short form videos a week. I'm getting a new editor and stuff like that. So it's going to be fun. But yeah,
exciting.
More than that, you're going to be hearing my voice a lot.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. With that said, thanks, Bala, for being the co-host here for Hotline FN. It's fantastic. I have a great time with you.
Always a pleasure.
I love stealing your clout. It's the best part of my week. So, thank you, and catch you next week, brother. All right, guys. That's been Hotline FN. This is still Hotline FN, but also that was Hotline FN. But episode 12, fantastic. It's great to have Elevate on. Always good to have Bala back, and going forward in the future, we're trying to get right back into consistency of it. So if you've got guests that you want to see, it's a little harder without World Cup. Before it was World Cup, all right, just look at qualifiers, bring them on the show, right? Now it's a little trickier. So if there's people you want to see on the show, make sure you let me know. Leave a comment here on Twitch. Hit me up on Twitter, leave a comment on a YouTube video or wherever you listen to the podcast. Make sure you catch this episode and all previous episodes on the YouTube channel. Wherever you find your podcasts, available in both formats. We try to clean it up a bit and get it nice and presentable there for you. So the final point is the same point as always. You have to support the things you like to keep them around, right? And there's so many easy ways to do that here. You can follow on Twitch for free. That helps immensely. You can subscribe on YouTube for free. That helps immensely. You can hit us up on Twitter. Myself, Bala, and Elevate. Anyone who's involved with this show, Levin, any one of the callers, support these guys if you enjoyed them, if you enjoyed what they had to say, what they had to talk about, and the production they were involved in tonight of Hotline FN. And of course, if you want to go that extra step, we're always down for subscriptions on Twitch. That does a lot for us as well. And other than that, we'll see you next time on Hotline FN.